Hello everyone, and thank you for attending this talk. I'm Dudek Sebastien, and today I will talk to you about RF shadow games, the art of catching RF spy bugs. You can find me on Twitter using the name Fluxus. I'm a researcher at the GreHack company, and I've also founded my company named Pentets, specialized in radio communication and hardware. Today I will talk to you about RF spy bugs. RF spy bugs are a real threat today because actually you don't know, for example, here, if like a simple cable like that could be legit or not, and also if like a box like that is spying on you or not, or this dongle, if you can trust this kind of dongle or not. So this is like something that I wanted to talk to you about, how to identify such such devices or such cables that can communicate over the air. What we can do with some software-defined radio, etc. So the agenda for today is to just give you like a very quick introduction to wireless communications, present you some spike bugs implants using the wireless communications, ways to trap also some RF spike bugs, and also talk to you about some inspected devices. Radio frequency. So radio frequency have a lot of history, and today you know them because I mean thanks to the DSP, because now we know we are using a lot of mobile phones, wireless television, satellites, etc. So you know, Earth it's present everywhere, and thanks to DSP we use that a lot to communicate, etc. But it's also a good candidate for RF spy bugs because actually when you want, for example, a bugs or an implant to communicate over the air, is like much better than just using like a simple wire that can be just spotted very easily. And the problem for us is that there is like no invisible wires, so we'll have at some point try to interface with some sort of signal that is sent over the air. Like for example, here's like a linear polarized sinusoidal electromagnetic wave that we can interface with the right antenna, for example. And what is important is also to notice that we have at some point to know the frequency that is used by this signal in order to capture the communication, try to see the signal, or to interface with this communication. And the first thing that you have to use when you want to scan or you want to see what is in the air is like a spectrum analyzer. You can find some spectrum analyzer like the Rode Short one that you can see here that is pretty expensive. Or there are also others like the RF Explorer that I will also here that here is scanning on the Wi-Fi frequency just right now, and that costs like €100 or €300. It supports some frequency, but the resolution is like not very good compared to the Rode Schwartz, but it's okay. If you want, it's like a very cool gadget to have if you want to just put some frequency that are around. But you have also other ways like using SDR with GreHack, HSDR, or you have like SDR chat, which is like a software that is very well maintained, as well as GreHack. And that using a software-defined radio device. You have to know that before software-defined radio, it was really difficult to have like to have an idea of what was going in the air because you had like to maybe make your own, your own equipment to scan to a specific frequency, or get like a very expensive equipment that is able to tune to several frequencies. And today it's really accessible, and what the SDR gives you is just, for example, the SDR allows you to tune to several frequency, and what it will do is that it will do the conversion to analogic to digital, then do the RF amplification, etc., and provide you only some samples that you can work with, like you can modulate, you can encode, you can decode, etc. You can process the samples that the software-defined radio device gives you. And There are like more than 100 SDR devices. If you look at, for example, at Wikipedia page, if you look at the SDR devices in Wikipedia, you will see like plenty of devices. But there are also cheap SDR devices. So if you don't know anything about SDR, you can always buy one for 15 euro, like this one. And this one is pretty cool because it's really cool, for example, to begin with such cheap SDR device. So now let's talk about identifying RSPI bugs implants. So if we look, for example, at our cable, they look pretty legit, but you have to know that once we plug them, for example, if we plug this implant, which is like the wedge injector, you can, for example, see that at some point you will see a spike that will be higher than the other one you have scanned before. So at some point you have to start with. I mean, here we can just unplug it, but at some point you have to start fresh with. With nothing plugged, and then plug the device and wait a little bit, and then you'll see maybe like a spike that is higher than the other frequency. But the problem with that is that at some point we are also trying to scan the 2.4 gigahertz frequency, which are really noisy because they are Wi-Fi, a lot of Wi-Fi networks, etc. You have also Bluetooth devices, etc. So it's like really noisy. But there are also plenty of ways because as you can see here, we can, for example, just plug a cable here. As it uses probably the ICM bands, we can try to scan for some Bluetooth devices first or Wi-Fi devices using, for example, airborne, etc. But here it's Bluetooth, so we'll see that maybe here we can see like a device showing here called Ninja, and if we unplug the device, we can see that this device will just go away. So that means that at some points the cable is not legit. But yeah, it is like really difficult because at some points these devices also use the 2.4 gigahertz. So at some point you will have to use a Faraday cage in order to be sure that the device is communicating or not. Because if it doesn't use, for example, the Wi-Fi or the Bluetooth protocol, at some point you will have to do some guessing, and so you will have to use a basic RF Explorer. You will see that there will be some communication, but you will be not sure about that. So at some point you will have also to isolate the signal, and so using a Faraday cage. So to identify the RF spy, there is like the hard way. So you can tear down the device or tear down the cable in order to be sure. So this is like maybe one of the most practical way to do that, but you can also do that using RF, as I just showed, by scanning the frequency, identifying an interesting signal, then do some further analysis on it. And when it comes to analyze the signal, you can, for example, determine the frequency. By determining the frequency, you can maybe classify the signal, say that maybe it's like, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, LoRa, or something as such, by just looking at the waterfall, the shape of the frequency, the modulation, etc. And then you can go deeper. And then you can also use some blocks to process the signal, for example, using radio with SDR, for example. And you will have then to decode also this information using maybe NRZ, which is very basic, or Manchester, or FEC, or any other encoders, etc. So there's like a lot of things to do, but if there's like any shortcut you can take, for example, you can say that, okay, this is using Bluetooth, or this is using Wi-Fi, you will directly go to this solution in order to interact with it, dump the communication, etc., decode it, etc. There are also useful tools when it comes to reversing some signal like URH. So here, for example, I was sending a signal with a magic word here with a very poor preamble at the beginning, and this signal I can, for example, reverse with the URH tool. If I don't want, for example, if I'm lazy, I can use this tool, and I will not have, for example, to use a radio companion to to process this thing. So this is also a good way, for example, using simple digital simple digital signal like ASK, PSK, or FSK. Use URH is like very helpful, and you can also decode all the bits and classify them very easily. So it's really practical using the analysis tab. But beyond all of that, we can also trap the devices and then we can analyze them. So if, for example, we take the example of the microspy bugs, at some point the microspy bugs use the mobile network, and so you can maybe try to trap them in order to, to attract them to a fake base station in order to see if there is like some malicious things around or not. But the problem is that with this technique is that you will probably also attract the other devices, so the other UE. But if you ask for some people to just like throw away their phones, not bring their phone in a meeting room, maybe at some point you will maybe have more chance to trap this kind of devices in a meeting room. And to trap the device, you can use exactly the same things I was presenting in a lot of conference about how to trap, for example, intercoms, etc. So this is exactly the same things. You use the handover concept in order to be the strongest BTS in order to trap the device in your station. And this is the following. So for example, here I was using like a BladeRF, and here was the box in the right. That was like it's like just a simple GPRS tracker. And so by just using the appropriate MCC-MNC, that means that I'm using the exact PLMN code that is used by the SIM card of this device. So I can, for example, try to brute force this MCC-MNC in order to find the good one. So I will just like postpone. I will just broadcast MCC-MNC for each operator and wait until something just get registered to my device, to my base station. I also send a very strong GSM signal. So actually, I'm the strongest. I'm supposed to be the strongest BTS. So normally the device here is supposed to connect to me. But yeah, in a specific situation when you don't know where the device is, at some point you will also to use, for example, an amplifier for that. And then you can capture the communication in GSM or GPS. But what if the bug use like 3G or 4G? If the bug use 3G or 4G, there's also a way, because yeah, we know that there's like some mutual notification with 3G or 4G. So we can maybe try to downgrade the communication to GSM by using some jamming. So we can use, for example, the jammer like that or jammer like that. Or we can also use like a jammer using SDR, which is like very easy to use. I have also released some tools that allows you, for example, to map a lot of GSM base station and then jam them in order to, for example, downgrade the communication of one specific device to UBTS. But if here in the particular case, or when the device, for example, use only 4G, at some point you can also try to catch only the MSI. For example, here I'm using the SRSLT program, and so using SRSLT and using exactly the right MCC-MNC, I'm able to trap one specific device in my base station, and this device just dropped me the MSI, but it didn't complete the registration because at some point I don't have the shared secret key of the SIM cards in order to register this phone. But it doesn't matter because what I wanted to know is this is the presence of any specific device around. And so like that, I can maybe locate any specific device which is around, for example, using my a device like that. So sorry, like that, and I can maybe try to scope any device around with, for example, MapLDRF, and see if something get attached or not. So yeah, this is not like an easy things to do, but using SDR, it is like something that it's possible. You can, for example, try to use, for example, a BTS that will be put in the location, and we try to broadcast its information in order to trap as much devices on it, and then you will try to see what is going on. And in 4G, you can also do the same, but you will just try to catch the MSI and see if there's like an MSI that you don't know around. There are also unsuspected devices, and unsuspected devices are also, more difficult to predict because actually a lot of people use, for example, wireless keyboard, wireless mouse, etc. And this is a mess. And you can find a lot of devices that can be vulnerable to keystroke injection, like the mouse, the keyboard, the presenters, and so on. And the cause of that is that there's like sometimes no confidentiality when you send strokes. For example, when you send a strokes, a button, or anything, you will see like the stroke that will be sent in clear text or encoded in a way that you can use the same code and replay the same code. You can also replay the same code if, for example, there are some devices that protect the keystroke by just enciphering the keystroke, but there is no, there's no IV on the keystroke, so you can replay the same keystroke again and again. Or sometimes the pairing key is sent in clear, so you can just sniff it and then use it, for example, to encrypt the keystroke, etc. And there are like plenty of publication about this. Like you have like a lot of tools like Mousejack, Logic Hacker. There are also very good publication by Matthias Dick and Gerald Klosterner that talk about mouses and keyboards, how they reverse the keyboards and mouses. So it's pretty interesting. And here is like an example of using the Logic Hacker tool when I was, for example, using a dongle plugged in the GPD device, and at the right I was just sniffing on the keystrokes and then injecting the keystrokes also myself after sniffing the pairing and then using the paired key. I was able to inject the keystrokes and also sniff on the keystroke that were typed by the key. So the conclusion is that wireless error spike bugs are difficult to track, but still it's possible. You can do that with SDR or any other mean like that. But at some point you will have to be very strict on mapping all RF device to see if one RF device or one RF communication is monetary, is legit or not. So it's really difficult, but it's like maybe at some point you need to maybe have some places that are well isolated from other devices, because actually it's like as you have seen already with that, it's a mess to just like stick to some specific communication, especially when these devices and most of these devices use the ISM bands for that. And I think that could be like very interesting to work on is like do some further work on identifying the signal using some ML, machine learning. So thank you for your attention. And if you have any question, please ask. And thank you again. So yeah, I'm open to all your questions now.
Thank you, Sebastien. It was really a great presentation. So we have one question from the Zoom. So to your knowledge, nowadays, is a lot of blue teams, do a lot of blue teams have some skills with those kind of malicious devices?
I think that there are some blue team that have some skills. I have already saw a blue team. There was like a presentation last year about some implants using, for example, the weed injector, etc. And some of them also just disassembled some of the implants and also notified that there was like some chips, etc. So yeah, actually, people. I think that blue teams are aware of this kind of danger. But generally, it comes to tearing down all the tech cable, and tearing down all the cables could be a nightmare. So I could like be with at my house. I could be like only with wires, like simple wires. It's like be a mess. So I was just exposing how to do that only with radio. Having maybe some clue on how to test the cable without tearing it down. But I think that some blue teams have already some knowledge about maybe tearing down the things in order to see if the things is malicious or not. And about the other things, about, for example, the spy bugs with the microphone, this is something that's normally detectives are aware of. So generally, if there's a place that's that needs, for example, some confidentiality, some people just hire some people in order to, for example, do exactly the same thing as I have presented, like trapping, for example, the spying device, the spying nick, and then see if there's like any spying nick around or anything spying around using the mobile network. So this is something that's maybe is like a knowledge that is a little bit split, around all the profession, because you have like special detective for that. But inside a company, I don't know. I think that's should be. I mean, it should be. They should have some, but maybe not really specialized in RF. Maybe it's like more generalist. So yeah.
Okay, so we have another question. Thank you for your answer. So how to ensure a high enough transmission power, and also what kind of hardware, and how far can you be from your target? And last question, and is it legal?
Yeah. I think can you just repeat the question? So
Yeah,
I
sorry,
can,
lots of questions. So how to ensure that you have a high enough transmission power, and what kind of hardware like do you maybe use or target? I don't know. And how far can you be from your target?
So it's for the second. I mean, when you want to trap a device. So yeah, how far depends on how powerful you also transmit, because everything is relative to the power of the transmission. So if you want to trap a device, you have to be not too far. I mean, depending on how much power you also transmit. And is it legal? Not, because actually you cannot transmit without having a license for that. But generally, yeah, the thing is that you will not, for example, for the answer of your question is, you will not try to transmit too much power in order to not annoy, for example, the operator, by example. So you will try to transmit as less as possible, and you will try to scan. You will try to target maybe just the room and not other rooms around. So yeah, actually, this is also a battle with also other BTS, because sometimes if you have like a cell which is really close to your place, you have to fight against it. So this is also a battle sometimes. So yeah, I mean, it requires a lot of time doing this kind of operation. So generally, it's like not an operation that you can do like in a 1 hour shot.
I have one question, like how much does your equipment cost around, like?
Generally, it's like more than €1,000, because if you spend like €300 for a generic device, it doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, it does worth the price, for example, to begin in RF, etc., to do some generic stuff. But generally, you have to have like for SDR, for example, for this kind of purpose, if you want to emulate a base station, SDR is not a base station. So actually, you have to use, for example, a better clock. I mean, a more precise clock, for example. You need like also a very good SDR, but also a very good computer in order to run all of that. Because actually, the SDR is pretty good, it's pretty fast, but your computer also has to be pretty fast. So yeah, it's like also, I mean, you have to do a lot of investment about that.
Okay. So I think it's going to be the last question. Is it possible to use a femtocell to emulate a 3G, 4G base station and spoof a legit network?
You cannot spoof a legit network, because actually, if you spoof a legit network, you have to get the keys, and in 3G and 4G, you need exactly to have the keys of your register. I mean, your subscriber. In code, because there is like some mutual authentication in 3G and 4G, unless in 3G if someone has a simple SIM card and not a USIM mod card.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, guys. Ciao.